Now, what do you think of these? You've got one there, Isabel, as well. I mean, the incredible works of art. There's a lot of sensitivity and there's a lot of depth to this when you look at these women's faces. But this is not only beautiful art, but art born out actually of a desperate situation. These portraits are of Yezidi women, a group which has suffered particularly brutal treatment at the hands of Islamic State. Many bought and sold as sex slaves. Thousands of these Yezidi women are still unaccounted for. Well, these amazing pictures form part of an exhibition designed to help tell the world about the women's plight, and Hannah Thomas is the artist behind it and is here. Good morning. And I know this is not only an exhibition of your work of these women, but some self-portraits as well. How has this whole process helped these women that you've been dealing with?
During the summer, I travelled to Kurdistan with a clinical psychologist, and we were working to organise an art project with the Yezidi women, and I was teaching the women to paint their self-portraits, and the idea was to use portraits as a medium to share their testimonies with the rest of the world and to counteract the conspiracy of silence that often exists around issues such as the dehumanisation that they've experienced in ISIS captivity.
What drove you to want to go to Kurdistan, and what was your experience when you got there, when you were meeting these kinds of women? What was sort of your lasting impression?
It was hearing their stories on the media of their suffering that they experienced in ISIS hands, and a real desire to be able to do something to respond. And in going there, I hadn't been prepared just for how overwhelming it would be to hear their stories and to be with them. And so when I came back, it was painting their portraits was also a way to communicate something of which I've experienced, but also to communicate their dignity and resilience and unspeakable grief.
That's interesting, the dignity side of this, because from what a lot of these women have been through, you would imagine for the rest of us, dignity would be destroyed. You're saying these women are holding dignity together. I suppose in the sense that they've got to, as desperately hard as it is, fight on through this awful situation they've been through.
I think often, from my experience, the conventional media narrative very much focuses on the victimisation of sex slaves, and the idea was to, through these portraits and through the project with the women, was to counteract that narrative and to show their dignity and their strength and resilience. And also the story that the women wanted to share was very much one of their grief, because although the traumas of all that they experienced in ISIS hands were unbelievable, it was the grief of the loss of their children and loss of their husbands, and because most of these women still had children in the hands of ISIS, and that was the story that they wanted to share.
Absolutely horrific. I mean, I don't know if it's any of these women that you've brought in the pictures of in front of us, but one of the stories that I was reading about of one of the women that you met had been sold 14 times since 2013, and was an adult woman but couldn't even read or write. I mean, incredible, harrowing accounts.
And we were the same age as well, and what really struck me was the fact that how different our lives are. You know, we're the same age, and what she has experienced, just I cannot even begin to comprehend. And it was the act of her being repeatedly sold that was dehumanising for her. And I think these portraits and their portraits were a way to counteract the dehumanisation.
Because this is going on display now, and I think the Louvre in Dubai has shown some interest in this. What impact will that have in terms of raising awareness of what these women have gone through and are still going through?
I think one thing that the women did speak about was their desire for their stories to be heard, and a sense of feeling that they've been lost, they've been forgotten by the rest of the world, and so this project was a way in which their stories could be heard, in the sense that they haven't been forgotten as well.
Okay, Hannah, they are incredible pieces. Thank you for sharing your story and their story with us today. Thank you.
Thanks.